Stand on any corner in Manhattan today, and you'll be surrounded by glass towers scraping the clouds, yellow cabs honking, and 8 million people from every corner of the planet moving towards at breakneck speed. New York City is the financial capital of the world, a place where fortunes are made and lost before lunch. But rewind 400 years, and you'd find dense forests, rolling hills, and a handful of Native American villages along a natural harbor. What happened in between? Dutch traders, British conquest, the Revolutionary War, waves of immigration that never stopped. A colonial outpost that became the world's most important city, through fire, war, collapse, and reinvention. New York kept building upward, kept pulling people in, kept moving faster than anywhere else on Earth. For centuries, we've had to imagine what those earlier versions of New York looked like. Old engravings, faded photographs, sketches, and ship logs, but now, using AI trained on historical imagery, we can take those original drawings and see them as they might appear in real life. The wooden palisades, the sailing ships, the smoke from factory chimneys. You're about to witness 400 years of history in one video. So sit back and relax as we journey through the incredible story of New York City. So let's go back to where it all began. The year is 1524. Italian explorer Giovanni da Verrazzano sails into a magnificent natural harbor on behalf of France. He's greeted by the Lenape people who've lived there for thousands of years. They call this place Mannahatta, Island of Many Hills. Verrazzano stays just long enough to note the excellent harbor and then sails away. Nobody in Europe really cares. Fast forward to 1609. English explorer Henry Hudson, working for the Dutch East India Company, sails up the river that would eventually bear his name. He's looking for a passage to Asia, and he doesn't find it, but he does find something valuable: beavers, and lots of them. And in the 17th century Europe, beaver pelts are worth a fortune. They're used to make felt hats that every fashionable gentleman wants. The Dutch waste no time. In 1624, they established a trading post on the southern strip of Manhattan. They call it New Amsterdam. The next year, they built Fort Amsterdam where the Battery is today. The Dutch West India Company runs the settlement as a business operation. They're not here to build a new society or spread religion. They're here to make money. In 1626, according to legend Peter Minuit, he purchases Manhattan from the Lenape people for the goods worth about 60 guilders, often translated as $24. The reality is more complicated. The Lenape don't have the same concept of land ownership. They think they're agreeing to share the land, not to sell it permanently. But the Dutch think they've bought it outright. This misunderstanding will shape centuries of conflict. New Amsterdam grows slowly at first. By 1630, maybe 300 people live there. It's rough, dirty, and drinking is the main pastime. There are supposedly more taverns than houses, and the settlement is also remarkably diverse. The Dutch encourage immigration from anywhere: Germans, Scandinavians, the French, Africans, both free and enslaved, Jews fleeing from prosecution, and by the 1640s, 18 different languages are spoken in a town of fewer than 1,000 people. In 1653, the settlement is officially incorporated as a city. They build a protective wall along the northern edge, basically a wooden fence to keep out the British colonists and the Native Americans. That same wall runs along what's now called Wall Street. The city is already becoming a trading hub. Ships arrive with goods from Europe, the Caribbean, and up and down the Atlantic coast. Then in 1664, 4 English warships sail into the harbor. The commander delivers a message to Peter Stuyvesant, the Dutch governor: surrender or be destroyed. Stuyvesant wants to fight, but the citizens don't. They're merchants, they're not soldiers. Without firing a single shot, the English take control. They rename the city New York after the Duke of York, brother of King Charles II. Under British rule, New York continues growing, and by 1700, about 5,000 people live there. It's still smaller than Boston or Philadelphia, but the harbor gives it potential. The city becomes a major port for the slave trade, a dark chapter that's often overlooked. Trinity Church, still standing at the foot of Wall Street, was partially built with profits from slavery. By the 1760s, New York has about 18,000 residents. Then, Britain starts to impose new taxes on the colonies. The Stamp Act of 1765 sparks riots in New York. The Sons of Liberty, a radical group, starts organizing resistance. New Yorkers are some of the most vocal opponents of the British policy, and when the Revolutionary War breaks out in 1775, New York becomes a key battleground. In the summer of 1776, just after the Declaration of Independence is signed, George Washington moves his army to defend the city. He knows whoever controls New York controls the Hudson River, and whoever controls the Hudson can split up the colonies in half. The Battle of the Long Island in August 1776 is a disaster for the Americans. The British force Washington to retreat to Manhattan and then chase him north. And on September 21st, a fire breaks out that destroys a quarter of the city. Both sides start to blame each other, and Washington's army eventually retreats completely, and the British occupy New York for the next 7 years. It becomes their military headquarters in North America. And when the war finally ends in 83, the British evacuate. George Washington rides triumphantly into the city, and in 1789, New York briefly becomes the capital of the United States. Washington is inaugurated as the first president at Federal Hall, right on Wall Street. But by 1790, the capital moves to Philadelphia, then eventually to Washington, D.C. And this could have been the end of New York's importance. Instead, it's just the beginning. In 1811, city planners make a decision that will define New York forever. They lay out a grid of streets above Houston Street, the Commissioner's Plan. 12 avenues running north to south, numbered streets running east-west. It's rigid, efficient, and allows for endless expansion. Some called it visionary, others called it boring, but either way, it works. The Erie Canal opens up in 1825, connecting New York Harbor to the Great Lakes, and suddenly, goods from the entire American interior can flow through New York to the rest of the world. Almost overnight, New York becomes the busiest port in America, and by 1835, it's the largest city in the United States with over 200,000 people. Then another fire strikes. In December 1835, flames consume 700 buildings in Lower Manhattan. The water in the East River is frozen, making firefighting nearly impossible. The entire financial district nearly burns down, but New Yorkers rebuild it in brick and stone this time. Now the mid-19th century brings wave after wave of immigrants. The Irish arrive in huge numbers during the potato famine of the 1840s. Germans follow in the 1850s, and these aren't wealthy people. They're poor, desperate, and they cram into tenement buildings on the Lower East Side. 5, 6, sometimes 10 people living in a single room with no running water, no ventilation, and diseases everywhere. The Civil War then erupts in 1861. New York, despite being in the Union, has complicated loyalties. The city's economy depends heavily on cotton from the South, and when Lincoln institutes the draft in 1863, riots break out. For 5 days, mobs tear through the city, attacking black residents, burning buildings, lynching people. Federal troops have to be called in. It's the worst civil disturbance in American history. After the war, the city explodes with growth, and by 1870, nearly 1 million people live here. The elevated railway system starts running in the 1870s, the Brooklyn Bridge, an engineering miracle, opens in 1883 after 14 years of construction, and at the time, it's the longest suspension bridge in the world. In 1886, the Statue of Liberty is unveiled, a gift from France. She becomes the symbol every immigrant sees when first arriving in America, and they keep coming. Between 1880 and 1920, millions of people pour through Ellis Island. Italians, Russians, Poles, Greeks, Jews from across Eastern Europe. The Lower East Side becomes the most densely populated place on Earth. In 1898, the 5 boroughs officially consolidate into the Greater New York City, creating the modern metropolis. Now this is a huge moment. Brooklyn, which had been the 4th largest city in America, merges with Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, and Staten Island. The city keeps building upward. In 1902, the Flatiron Building rises 22 stories, one of the first skyscrapers, and the subway system follows shortly after in 1904, allowing the newly consolidated city to expand into the outer boroughs. By 1910, New York has 5 million people. It's the 2nd largest city in the world after London. The energy is electric. Times Square becomes the entertainment capital. Broadway theaters are packed every night. Jazz clubs in Harlem create an entirely new American art form. Then comes the crash of 1929. The stock market collapses, and the Great Depression hits New York hard. Banks fail, businesses close, bread lines stretch for blocks, and the gleaming optimism of the 1920s gives way to desperation. But even during the Depression, New York kept building. The Empire State Building rises in 1931, the tallest building in the world. And then World War II pulls America out of depression. New York has become the arsenal of democracy, its factories churning out war material. When the war ends, the city is at its peak. The United Nations establishes its headquarters here in 1945. New York is the capital of the world, from the Dutch trading post with 60 guilders to the financial and cultural capital of the planet, from wooden palisades to steel and glass towers piercing the clouds. From 300 settlers speaking 18 languages to 8 million people from every corner of the earth, New York has survived the colonial quest, Revolutionary War, devastating fires, draft riots, financial panics, and 2 world wars. Through it all, the city kept building, and it kept growing, kept reinventing itself. Every wave of newcomers added something new, and every crisis made it stronger.